We go live in our group here. So I'll take just a moment. Spell your name for me one more time to say it out loud.
Philippe.
Okay. All right, let me get the group here. I think it'll let me go live in there. The ultimate Facebook group. Okay. All right, well, we are live. So Philip, why don't you get us kicked off today?
Well, thanks for the invitation, Eric. The first time I heard of you or saw you was actually watching the Facebook Live recording of you in Arizona, being beautifully acknowledged by Steve Hardison. And there's something you said that really spoke to my heart. Now, we're very lucky because we both have wives. Your wife, Heather, says, one of the things I remember you saying, if any man was acknowledged by his wife the way Heather acknowledges you, he would be wildly successful the way you are. And it was or a way of that, just appreciating her. And I want to start by appreciating our wives, who, hearing that, I thought, wow, my wife, Christina, is my biggest acknowledger and believer in me. And so I want to just say how much that comment really spoke to my heart and just made me love my wife even more for who she is and the way she sees me and acknowledges me. So I wanted just to start with that, and just say, hey, take a moment to acknowledge our wives. So thank you for sharing that.
Let me speak to that, because I had no idea that's what you were going to open with, but I love that. And the thing is, I look at acknowledgement as we're feeding another human being's soul. And so when my wife is acknowledging me and my soul is being fed, and it like brings out a side of me to like go for my goals or go for my dreams or be more bold or be more courageous. And it's really very motivating to me. And I'm just so blessed that that's who she is. She is an amazing acknowledger of me. And I'm just grateful for that.
Yeah, so that's so beautiful. I appreciate that. So one of the things you've created here is this Facebook group, which is now up to 6,000 people. And it has been something that I've just seen grow organically. I'd love to know sort of, I don't think there's been a conversation where you just share sort of, how did that actually happen? And I've heard it from Steve, but I haven't heard it from you. Where did that come from, that you created this? And another thing I want to acknowledge you for is consistent, constant creation. I mean, in this whole creating, I've never seen a Facebook group with so much engagement, so much activity, but most importantly, so much love. And from someone who I consider to be a sales guy, no one's selling you anything here. And there's there's so much love and appreciation. So I just think that's what an acknowledgement to you and who you're being and how this group has evolved.
Well, one thing, and I absolutely want to get to the story about how the group came into fruition, but one of the things that I love about the group is it's a place where we can come and we can express ourselves, and you can expect to receive love and acknowledgement back. And it's a very unique place where we get to have this conversation about being. And one of my beliefs about anything, if I want to get fit and I go to the gym, I gotta lift the weights. And so if we think about being, here's a place kind of like the gym for lifting weights, but it's a Facebook group that I think I'm in there pretty much every day, adding value, posting, commenting, contributing. And I invite people to do that because I get to work on my being in the group and practice it and it's not just practice, it's in the real world.
Yeah.
And I've had so many breakthroughs, Philip, since the group started. So I love being able to be in there and express myself. And I just, any of you watching this, I would encourage you to be consistent in your posting if that speaks to you. The start of the group, we actually have to go back several years before the group came into existence. And a friend of mine named Joe Severson talked to me about, Eric, you really should have a Facebook group for this event that you're doing. So I was teaching a live seminar and he was the guy behind the live stream of the live seminar. And back then, this is years ago, and live stream was not a common thing. I mean, now it's like, it's what we do. And so I'm like, well, I don't know anything about live stream. I know a lot about teaching seminars. So Joe, if you want to handle the live stream, go for it. So he did. And he goes, we need a Facebook group. And I'm like, a Facebook group for an event? And I didn't understand. And he goes, just trust me on this. I go, great. So we did this Facebook group and the people on the live stream were interacting in real time in the Facebook group. And there was, I don't know, 300 or 400 people that joined the group for the event. And I got to watch how valuable it was for people to have this group where they could all be connected and be sharing about this experience from this seminar that I was teaching. So that got me excited about the possibility of Facebook groups. And so I started using them in different ways in my business. And so right now I think I have like, I don't know, 5 Facebook groups for my training company. And then I had an experience when there was a fire that burned down the town of Paradise. That's in California. And the actual name of the fire was called the Camp Fire. And Philip, it wiped out an entire town. And 50,000 people became displaced or homeless overnight. And when I found out about it, my heart I really felt a calling, like what could I do to help these people, these 50,000 people, what could I do? And so I thought, well, why don't I create a Facebook group? So my wife and I, we co-created this group and it was called Paradise Fire Adopt a Family. And it was one family helping one family. That was the concept. So a person who didn't lose their home like me would help a family that lost their home. And we were kind of like a matchmaker. And I thought we would help 10 families. Well, Philip, the group went viral and 34,000 people joined the group. It became the largest Facebook group for the region handling this campfire. And all of these miracles were happening. And we don't have time today to get into all of that, but that's an hour-long conversation just in that, but that's not what we're here to talk about. So I had that experience and I did that for a year. And then I closed the Facebook group down for a variety of reasons. But my wife and I led this group and I got to learn really deeply how powerful a Facebook group could be. So fast forward, now we're back in, I think it was December 7th is the date of the origin of this group. And that day, Steve Hardison and I had a conversation. Now, I didn't really know Steve. He and I had met one time, like back in 2013. So I wasn't a client of Steve's. I'm not currently a client of Steve's. I'm like so many people that he loves human beings and he treats human beings with kindness. And he always treated me with kindness. So it was so powerful in my mind how loving he was towards me that I, like so many people in the world, it's like I would be willing to do just about anything to support Steve because he's just that special and that amazing and that incredible. And so in the book, The Ultimate Coach, I got an advanced copy and then I got the paperback copy and I was reading it and my name's in the book, Philip. And when I read my name, I didn't know. And it's not like there's a big story about me. It's just a little thing, but my name's in the book. And I was like a kid at Christmas getting a present under the tree. Like I was giddy, like, oh my gosh, my name's in the book, right? So I messaged Steve over Facebook. Hey, Steve, thank you for having me in the book. It meant a lot to me. And he said, Eric, call me. And he asked for a phone call the next day. So that was the day that the group launched, was the day that we had this phone call. And I didn't go to the call planning on launching a Facebook group. I went to the call because I messaged Steve thanking him for putting me in the book. And he asked me for a phone call. He didn't express what the purpose of the call was. He just said, call me. And when Steve Hardison says, call me, you call him. So I called him and he's telling me all about the book and he's excited. And he was sharing with me about it. And I said, you need a Facebook group. And he, in essence, said, well, I don't know anything about that. And I said to him, I'm willing to create a group, manage it, run it, turnkey. All you have to do is say yes, and it's done. And then I said, I want you to take a couple of days to think about it. Because in my mind, this is a big decision. We're essentially kind of in a way becoming partners. I mean, it's not a partnership, but it kind of is, right? And he's kind of putting a stamp of approval on me, which his reputation is impeccable. So to me, it was a big decision for him. So I'm like, look, I know what I'm willing to do. He didn't know about my 34,000 person group, my years of experience running Facebook groups. And so I said, take a few days to think about it. By the end of the call, he's like, I want to do it. I'm like, okay. So I launched the group that night. And I didn't tell anybody except Steve. I just invited Steve and I said, okay, Steve, here's the group, join it. I said, you give me the green light, it's a go. And he goes, you got the green light. So we launched it that night. And I think within a week, we had 1,000 people in the group. Mm-hmm. And so I want to say one last thing. I want to turn it back to you. So we were on the phone with Clayt, who's the CEO of Keep. And so it's Steve and Clayt and myself. And so I'm saying to Clayt, I don't think I've even said this to Steve, but Clayt, I'm committed to leading this Facebook group for 20 years. And so that was the first time that I verbalized that, although I had been thinking that, because when I launched the group, I thought, well, what really is this commitment? Well, people are going to want to continue on in this conversation. People are going to come and go through the group. And I'm committed to doing this for 20 years. That's my commitment. So that's the first time that Steve had heard that. And since then, I've expressed that commitment many times, and I'm expressing it again here. And I'm that kind of person that I believe in the philosophy. If something's correct, you plant your flag. So I planted my flag as the leader of the group, and I engage in the group pretty much every day. And so that's the kind of the short version of how the group came into fruition in the first place.
Well, thank you for sharing that. Yeah. Well, when I joined the group, it was already 300-400 people. And when it crept up to 500, I remember saying to you, Eric, I'm not sure if bigger is better. Do you remember that? I think we had that conversation.
I had some people have that conversation. I didn't connect it specifically to you, but
so I was one of those people.
Express that to me.
Yeah. So I had, yeah. So for me, when I was like, yeah, I remember you saying the bigger, the more ripple effect, the more impact, and I can really see that. And at the same time, I love the group, and I felt like I felt there was an intimacy in the and maybe this is just me. There was an intimacy at 500 that you don't have at 5,000, at 6,000. I can't imagine what it's like if it's at 60,000 or 100,000. So yeah. So is there a point where the group becomes too big?
No, and it has to do with the purpose.
Okay.
Right? Because let's just say we capped it at 50,000, and we didn't allow anybody else in the group. So here would be the point. Which human beings out of the 7 or 8 billion on the planet? So if we cap it at 50,000, which of the remaining 7 billion people are we going to deny access to the opportunity to experience their being in the group? And so the purpose of the group is, for me, it's one piece to the puzzle of the being movement sweeping the world.
I know. So, and it's, keep going.
The book. We've got now with the podcast, which you're actively involved with. We have the Instagram, we have the Kindle, we have the Audible version of the book. We have the website. There's all these pieces, and there's a different viewpoint that I've never really talked about in the group of how I'm strategically doing things to create the possibility of the Being movement going viral. And from my view, the group is at 6,000. I expect at some point the group will exceed 100,000, and that the ripple that's already taking place is going to expand even more. And I know from my own personal experience, and I've only, the group got created in December, so it's only been a few months. I personally have transformed how I interact with people, how I think about situations. There's times, Philip, where somebody will do something and it kind of tweaks me a little bit. It kind of like I got a message on Facebook this morning. Person sent me a message that was kind of like, wow, like you're sending me this direct message. It was kind of like, it was borderline offensive. And the old me might have been a keyboard warrior. And I'm thinking, no, how can I be loving?
Yeah.
And that is a miracle.
It is.
To go from being a keyboard warrior to how can I be loving? And this is with somebody on Facebook. Now, if I take that in my relationship with my wife, or my children, or my employees, how can I come from kindness? How can I be loving? How can I be different to work towards what it is that I'm up to in the world? And I've already shifted. And so it's really about sharing that with the world. And with the book, now there's the vehicle. The book is the catalyst, right? And the Facebook is just one aspect. It's an extension of the book, but it allows any of us to invite our friends and family to have this shared experience. And what's wild about it, Philip, the price of admission is a $20 book. And the possibility is transformation. And with the Facebook group being a 20-year project, it's a 20 years of value, zero cost. You kind of need the book, but you don't have to, but you kind of need the book. So for 20 bucks, this is the best game in town.
Well, I've never been part of a book. I've never been part of a group like this where I've met 30, 40 people, had conversations with outside the group. I feel like I have a whole family. And unlike you, Eric, I haven't been anywhere. I haven't left my home. And I have watched such transformations in so many people and humongously in myself as well. And it's just, I remember when I joined the group, I was completely blown away. This is what happened. I would go on the group and I would read something, and there was just so much gold. Pretty much every single post, and then every single comment. And I would read it and I would just be so impacted by it in such a profound and beautiful way that I just couldn't stop but engaging. And I really, really felt completely transformed by that experience. And so I can really recognize what you say around, staying committed and keep showing up. And the more you give, the more you get. It's 100% been my experience. And there's also been a time where I felt the need to sort of, just pull back a little. And that's been also really beautiful and really enriching. And I think it's just beautiful to honor the group for what it, as a possibility for what it can do. Most recently, it has transformed a very toxic relationship that I've had with my parents. I have, I'd like to share something about that, if that's okay.
You and we've had some conversations. Right? We had one specific one that I remember, and I'd love to hear what you have to share.
Well, I want to share that. I'm in a space where I'm going to be a father in August. So we're expecting our first baby boy, and we're absolutely thrilled. And Oh, at the same time, as I say that, there's pain, because my parents are in conflict with my wife, and there's been it's been really uncomfortable, and I have felt that I have been falling back into people pleasing behaviors. So I kind of joke, like I say, I'm a recovering people pleaser.
Mhm.
Now, one of the areas that I haven't been so good at is with my parents, and somehow, yeah, I have felt into their need for their approval and for their love, and so I wasn't really able to set firm boundaries with them. And I noticed it was like the way I was creating myself was a victim. The way I was creating myself wasn't the most empowered state of being. And yeah, just I would, one of the things I would allow is that I would give yeah, just give them a lot of airtime around the way they would speak about my wife and the way they would complain about things. And it was just not helpful. It wasn't helpful for me and for them. And something shifted also after speaking to, gosh, so many people in the group. Um, what shifted for me was how much I was allowing myself to be kind, thinking I was kind by listening to them. See, I thought I'm going to be empathetic. I'm going to be compassionate. I'm going to listen and be like, yeah, that's must be really tough. Yeah, that was, and that actually was just feeding the story, feeding the
Mhm.
story. And then I just noticed, like, gosh, how that, of course, my wife told me, like, why are you doing that? And because she was saying that to me, I also kind of took on a lot of the stuff myself, and I didn't include her. So I think one of the biggest realizations here is like, gosh, like get my wife to help me with this, because she was just brilliant in setting boundaries. And so I sent them an email um, in response to their email, and it was really about just being really clear. And actually, you know what, I can just pull it out here, and I'm just going to share what I shared, because it's I think this is valuable for anyone listening. I think I'm just going to share sort of the kind of the core of what I'm saying here. I'm saying I'm in a place in my life where I value my well-being, joy, and inner harmony over any form of conflict, even if honoring what I want means other people get upset with me. I want Christina and our baby boy to continue growing and being born in a stress-free, relaxed, and loving space. We both welcome you to participate as grandparents from that space of love and compassion. And our hope is that things will improve over time so that we can meet in that space and have the loving, respectful, and kind relationship that we really both want. And until we're able to have that kind of relationship, I will not entertain or discuss any form of conflict or arguments. Now, a month ago, I called my dad and he didn't answer. And I said, Dad, can you talk? He's like, yeah, I can, but I don't want to. I was like, okay. And now we're after that email. He calls me and we just have a normal conversation, Eric. Just a normal conversation. And to me, that's a miracle.
Yeah.
There was no problem. There was nothing to solve. What I got to see is it's like when you're tuning into a radio station, there's a vibration where there's problem solution. So when people coming at you, you're looking at solutions, and from this vibration of being love, there's a space where there is no problem and no solution. And when you can be that space, people can actually meet you in that space. And in that space, there is possibility, inspiration, um, opportunity. And I got to witness that with my dad just this weekend over Easter. And I want to acknowledge the group, the posts. There's so many people I've spoken to that have really helped for me to, gosh, to free myself. Because I tell you, the most beautiful thing is the minute I hit send, it was like, such a sense of freedom, such a sense of liberation. And another thing I was able to say to my father is, I acknowledge you for wanting the best for me. And I recognize that what you're doing is because you love me. Now, even love doesn't look like that to me, but I just being able to say that and recognize that, and it's not the words, it's who I was being. I was just loving on him.
Yeah. Well, I want to share a brief story about my dad, because I had a major shift with my own father since the group started. And I had been in a 3-year conflict with my father, and we had barely spoken in 3 years. And I was angry. So I was being anger. And out of being anger, I was disconnected from him. And I was just like, in my own thinking, like, I don't want to talk to you. I want nothing to do with you. If this is how it's going to be, I'm angry. And so that was my position. And through a series of events directly related to the group and the conversation of being, I had an opportunity to take a look at that. Who am I being in my relationship with my father? I'm being angry. So he's responding to me being angry. So I thought, well, what if I was loving? And he didn't shift anything. I just chose to go from anger to loving. So at the event that you saw me speak at in Arizona, I sent my dad a text. We had barely spoken in 3 years. And I said, hey, Dad, I'm speaking in Arizona. Would you like to come see me speak? If so, I'm buying your plane ticket, because he lives out of state. And then he goes, sure, I'd love to come see you speak. So he comes and sees me speak. And we had this, my kids were there, my wife was there, my dad was there. And ever since then, my dad and I have never talked through our issue that I was upset about, but I just stopped being upset. I just started being loving. And so now, once a week, my dad will call me or I'll call him. We end the call. I love you. I love you. It's like nothing happened. And it was literally just me shifting my being. It wasn't my dad changing. And that's the power of this group. I mean,
Yeah.
that is just like you. It's a miracle when we have conflict with our parents.
Yeah.
And it's not just our parents. It could be our spouse. It could be our kids. It could be we're not forgiving of ourselves. As all of you are watching this right now, that's the possibility of this group. But to create that, you got to lift the weights. You want to get better at anything, you got to put the work in. And what's the work? It's working on your being. It's reading the book, The Ultimate Coach, or listening to it on audio and reading it about yourself. And it's seeing yourself in the book. And then we have the opportunity to have a conversation in real time in the Facebook group. And it's not reading it and then putting it down and then you forget about being and you move on with your life. The group's there anytime you want it. It doesn't mean you got to do it every day. I choose to do that, but any of you could choose it at whatever frequency. Every time you go in there, though, and you lift the weights and you work on your being, the group isn't about me. It's a space for all of us to work on our being. And when I come from love instead of anger, when I come from kindness and compassion, when I'm not a keyboard warrior, that's like my bad pattern from the past that I don't do anymore. When I'm not a keyboard warrior and I'm just showing up, and that is like the greatest gift. And the price of admission is a $20 book.
I want to slow that down. What you just said, I think it's very profound. I really acknowledge you for being able to forgive your father, forgive yourself, and gift him and invite him for that event. You were in your story. You went from anger, I am being angry, to I am being loving. How did that actually happen? How did you actually go from I am being angry to I am being loving? What is it that you saw?
Well, I'm going to explain it with my understanding of what Steve teaches as a declaration. So an affirmation is words. So if I say, I am loving, but I'm being anger,
yes,
it's just words.
Right.
To me, this is my own interpretation of this. Okay.
Sure.
To me, a declaration is a way of being. So I was being anger, and then I just chose to be loving. And so it's like, okay, well, what does loving look like? It means I would invite my dad, I would let go of the past, and I would just be loving. And because of that, I didn't know that Steve was going to acknowledge me, for example, in that event. And so when Steve got up and spoke, I received more acknowledgement personally, as far as I know, than anybody else in his speech. And my dad got to be in the room with 300 people and 1,000 people online and watch me get acknowledged. And what, not just what Steve said, but I got a lot of acknowledgement from people in the room because I created the group. And because of that, I received a lot of it. So my father's seeing me in a way he's never seen me before. And it was unique in the environment that we were in. I was like, so glad that he was there. And so it was the thing about a declaration. When I'm on the phone coaching somebody, they'll say, I am inconsistent, or I am a procrastinator, or I'm not good at this, as a declaration. So we can just, my experience is we can just choose it. I can choose a different declaration. I can choose I'm being angry. I can choose I'm being loving. And then it's like, well, what would loving look like? Oh, I'd forgive. I would invite. I would include. My tone would be loving. My words would be loving. My touch would be loving. And so we all know how to be loving. You just choose it, right? And you shared this with me with your previous conversation regarding your parents, is you looked at the situation and you just said, you know what? I'm going to be loving with them. And anybody can do it.
I'll be honest with you. I thought I was being loving with them. So I wouldn't say I was being angry. I think I was more self-righteous. So for me,
you're also being loving though, because when we talked about, we don't have to get into all the specifics of the details, but when we talked about your one situation, you absolutely were coming from a very powerful way of being, and there may be aspects of it that you wanted to be different.
Right.
But I walked away from our call when you were sharing about your relationship with your parents. I was in awe. I was like, wow. Like how you handled that situation. I was so impressed with that. And it sounds like you've evolved it even more. And now you're in a new space of even more loving. And that's just beautiful.
Yeah, I felt very attacked. And in my defense, there's this something I've heard from a friend who quoted the Book of Miracles, and it says, in my defenselessness lies my security. And for me, being loving was allowing someone to, just not having to defend anything. Do you know how disarming it is when you get attacked and you don't have to defend anything? I mean, at one point I was acknowledged, I can see how hurt you are, and I recognize the pain that you're in.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to tell me? Like, it's the last thing that would be that I, it would be like, all right, let me shoot you down. Boom, boom, boom. No, it was like, whoa. And to be able to come, it's like, what else? What else you got for me? Give it, and then, just being able to have someone feel heard and seen in their position, not even have to share your opinion, not even have to explain why you're right or wrong. There's a space beyond all of that. For me, being loving is recognizing that that's like, for me, it's when you say the heavy lifting, for me, the heavy lifting is all the work I'm doing that's trying to defend the problem. That's, for me, a lot of work. But actually just, coming back to love is, holy cow, it's just so liberating and freeing. And actually, my experience of it is, it's like I've dropped the weights. There are no weights. And I recognize that we have different ways and different philosophies and different ways of doing it. And I'm fascinated because I see you as one of the greatest creators I have. I mean, you are just unstoppable. You're creating. Every time I speak to you, you've got like 10 things going on. And it's remarkable. And you just create, boom, you've got this. you have a vision, you go from idea to execution in about 7 seconds, and then it happens and it's out in the world. And I just want to say, wow, how like just how remarkable that looks to me. I'm also, how do you have so many things going on? And is there a point where it just feels like it's too much? Because you're coming in on every day. Like, is there a point where you feel like I just need to like have just a week with no Facebook, with nothing, and just be with myself? Does that come up for you?
You know, I think I draw energy from operating in my purpose. And so I have I think anybody could be as consistent as I am. Most people aren't. And part of my consistency comes from operating in my purpose. So with the group is Steve's concept of being. It's about the book, The Ultimate Coach, and I don't talk about my training company in the group. I never promote myself in the group because that's not the purpose of the group. Having said that, I still get to operate in my purpose leading the group. So my purpose hat's on. My company branding hat of my own personal business, I don't have that hat on. I've got the Ultimate Coach Facebook Leader Group hat on, but I'm operating my purpose. And so I get energized by that. As far as the practical, like, how am I doing all the different things I'm doing? I mean, it really has to do with team. So Steve came to me after the Facebook group got started and he's like, hey, can you do this for me on Instagram? I don't really know much about Instagram.
Yeah.
So I just said, no problem, Steve. So I just did what I do. And I put the word out looking for some leaders for Instagram. And Ayub and Sarah they run the Instagram, but it's like under my umbrella, but it's their expertise.
Sure.
So then the podcast concept came up. And so I put the word out for, instead of me doing the interviews for the podcast, because my plate's pretty full, right?
Yeah.
Like who out there would love to step in and be the voice? And then that's where you.
By the way, do you know that's an absolute mystery to me and an absolute miracle to me? Because I don't even know what happened. One day I woke up and I was in a group where I was invited to be a host for the podcast. And I never said this to you, but I actually thought you were inviting me to be interviewed for a podcast. I didn't even know I was and actually I had to read it like twice. And the second time I said, oh, I'm being asked to be a host for a podcast. And I had to really I was like, oh, I don't know if I want to commit to that. And I had to sit with it for at least 24 hours and to be like, well, this is weird. Like, I just get put into this group by this random Eric guy I've never even spoken to. And now all of a sudden everyone's introducing themselves. And so for me, that's a mystery how that happened.
Yeah.
And then I asked you, Eric,
we have the Ultimate Coach podcast. And Evans Putnam is an elite podcast expert. And so he's the strategy and the organizer and the technician and all the amazing stuff that Evans does. And then Philip, Ross, and Laban, they are the talent, if you will. They're the interviewers, the people that lead the conversations with our podcast guests. And so when the idea came about, my mind went to vision of a podcast. And I'm like, that would be amazing, where all of you that are here watching this right now, you have the opportunity to be on the podcast and be interviewed about being. And so I saw it, but then I thought, well, I don't have the technical podcast skills. So Evans showed up. I'm like, perfect. Let me see if Evans wants to be a part of it. And then I needed the interviewers, the people to lead the conversations. And I'm not even sure, Philip, how it worked, but somehow, some way you got the invite and you accepted. And so Philip is now, he's one of the 3 people that leads these conversations. And so he has a really important role, because through his interviews, like what he and I are doing right now, thousands and thousands, maybe tens of thousands, maybe millions will hear him leading these conversations to help shift the world on being. So it's pretty miraculous. But the answer around like doing all this stuff is when you've got teams of people that are leading things like Sarah and Ayub, Cordelia with the LinkedIn group, you know, and I'm good at organizing things.
Yeah. No, that's great. You bring structure and order. And there's something really beautiful that's come up for me as you shared, and it's around the word consistency. And I've noticed that I judge myself for being inconsistent. So I feel like, if I would see the story I have is if I were more consistent, I would get more results. Okay. You can see how this looks.
Yeah.
And I have from this conversation, I have a new way of seeing consistency that just feels like it honors myself more.
Yeah.
There's a consistency in showing up every day and doing the work. I get that. And there's a consistency in honoring your being before doing.
Mm-hmm.
What I'm noticing is I've actually been really consistent at that.
Yeah.
I've been consistent in aligning myself to a state of being that really is in alignment with what wants to be created. So I want to, so as I say this, you know, I forgive that judging part of myself that judges myself for not being consistent enough. And the truth is I've been so beautifully consistent internally. And I just want to thank you for this conversation is bringing me closer to, wow, to just that consistency that I can experience inside me, that I see in you through our conversation. And that judgment has just fallen away.
That's beautiful. And you think about the weightlifting example. So and it's not necessarily heavy lifting, right? Because we can lift light weights, but the point is we get in the gym, we do the work. So if you think about consistency or being inconsistent, I think what most people do is they just decide, okay, I'm inconsistent as a declaration. So now they live into the story of inconsistency, and the opportunity is to explore, how can I look at this different?
Yeah.
Like I'm the kind of consistent guy, like post every single day in the group. But someone else might say consistency for me is being in the group once a week.
I have a different, I would say consistency is to show up when there's something that wants to be expressed through me and share it in the group. Consistency means when I have an inspired idea, take action. Consistency means when I feel that my body is asking to rest, to allow my plans, allow enough space or change my plans to give that. It's consistency in honoring what my body wants, honoring what wants to be expressed through me, honoring the priority of who I want to be, you know. And I also recognize that you and I we have a very different way of creating and doing things, and I think that's also the beauty of our differences is we get to, you know, I can see how you are, how you speak, the way that you're very meticulous at following through, and I love that, because I love it that you're so different. I love it that you are so committed. If you say I'm going to post every day, that you post every day, and I love that how you create yourself to be that way. So I totally acknowledge you for that. And I can see how that works for you and how that's effective for you.
Yeah.
And at the same time, I acknowledge who I am in my, what may look to you like a lack of consistency is also for me a powerful way of creating and being.
Yeah. And one thing I fully acknowledge, like I got my way of doing things, but
Yeah.
lots of people do it different and they get phenomenal results. And so it's like I have my own, we all have our own unique signature, if you will, the way we express ourselves, the way we do what we do.
Yeah.
And so we, we can all learn from each other
You know
and
what I'd love to know from you?
yeah.
What does success mean to you?
Um Success to me is I'm very much life by design. My
Hmm.
life is very much set up in an intentional way. Um, I I'm about family, faith, fitness, career. Those are things that really matter to me. Um, I'm a long-term thinker, so I can think decades into the future, and I'm very much a planner. And I do have a lot of organization, a lot of structure in my life. I love being able to do purposeful work. And that's one of the reasons why I love the Facebook group so much. So I get to feel successful in that group because of the value that's being created in the group. I'm very results oriented. And so I'm very much an achiever mindset. Accomplishing goals is something the way my brain thinks. So those are some of the things that resonate with me about success.
And I think that's ultimately what drives our behavior,
Mhm.
because I recognize that, and I see you as someone who's not just achiever oriented, but actually achieves a lot and gets a lot of results. And I feel like that's our definition of success is also how we want to live our life. And I see you as someone who is very achievement orientated, and you're great at that.
Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. I don't even know how to answer that question, as I'm actually asking myself what success means. And I just I love the idea of living lovingly.
Mhm.
How much have I loved my, in the same way as you have, as you talk about achievement, I would just use the language of love. How much have I loved my family? Have I, just how much have I loved myself? How much have I loved this moment? How much have I loved all that life has thrown at me? The struggles, like how much have I loved it into my being? And yeah, I feel like that's, maybe it's to me it's also about being is success. See, every moment that I am being who I am, a state of inspiration and peace and love and connection, I am successful. And I am successful right now. In this moment, I am successful. There's nothing I can do, achieve, or create that can make me more successful than I already am. So I'm starting from a place of I'm already successful. Great. What do I want to create from that success? And I'm just yeah, it's just kind of bathing in the possibility of that. Yeah. The possibility of success as a state of being.
Mhm.
Yeah. What are you hearing in that?
I'm hearing peace. I'm
Yeah.
hearing a contentment. I'm hearing a uh, just a real sincere acknowledgement of yourself. And I loved what you shared.
Well, I love that you say that. Thank you. And living in contentment is, yeah, that's so beautiful. And what a, yeah, what beautiful language you use. That's, yeah. And it's really an acknowledgement to who you're being, an acknowledgement to your state of, motivation and inspiration. And I see that in you. I see that in you. Thank you for being with me today.
You're welcome. I'm so glad that you are part of our podcast team, because the ease at which you do an interview, I had so much fun just being with you today. And you allowed me to express myself and in a way that I'm, feel really great about. And I really just enjoyed our time together today. And that's clearly why you're one of our podcast leaders of the conversation, because you're clearly gifted in this. And it was a really wonderful conversation. And so thank you for leading it.
Well, thank you for being in it with me and for everything that you shared. And thank you everyone who've who've gotten this far and who've listened to us. Appreciate you spending your time with us today. And if there's anything that you heard in this, yeah, I'd love to. I'll go and read all the comments and anything that that you want to share. So thank you, Eric, for being with me today. I really appreciate it.
Philip, you're welcome. And I want to thank all of our Facebook members. Thank you for being a part of the group. And I want to thank Amy Hardison for all her hard work and dedication for creating this book that's what's bringing us all together here. Steve's idea being, and then Amy, all the work you did. Thank you. And Alan, thank you for all your research. And to Steve Hardison, thank you for who you are, how you show up for me. And Steve, how you show up for so many people all over the world. And you truly inspire me, and I'm thankful for you. And Philip, thank you for being a great leader of our conversation today.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Well, that's going to wrap up our session today, guys. We'll see you in the Facebook group. And thank you for being with us today.